Welcome, everyone. Today is Thursday, April 17th. This is class three of week two for hotel evening and weekend platoon. Today, we're going to start with Tuesday's challenge called Some Pairs. Did anyone finish it? Want to go over their code?
I did. I finished it.
You want to share your screen and walk us through your answer, Cisco?
Yeah. Let me set it up real quick here. Okay. Desktop two. Do you guys hear any background noise, anything?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Can you spin the, how's that? Is that text too big, too small?
I think it's fine. Good.
Okay. All right. So I started out by, of course, adding the array and the expected output within the arguments for some pairs definition. Uh, then I declared an empty dictionary to hold the elements to compare other elements to. I also declared an empty list to hold the value pairs that equal the sum of the output. And
What's output again, Cisco?
the output is, so let me put this here. The output is here.
No, no, no. What's the output? That
So
variable name. It's not
the,
very specific. I don't know what it is. It's a
oh,
target value, right? Or a target num.
right. So
All right.
it's the expected output from this parameter here that's inside this, some in the test file, right? So you got the array, and then you got the expected output, and that's what's going inside of the sum pairs
But that's
definition here.
not the expected output. Words matter here. It's not the expected output. Your
Oh,
output is actually what?
I'm sorry. It's not the expected output. What this is the number that we are expecting um the pairs to sum, the total sum of the number of the pairs that we're trying to compare in
Is
the
the
array.
target value.
Yeah.
So update, you don't have to do it now, but eventually that would have to be something like target value or just
Yeah.
target. This is really important. Um, Being very specific as to what you're describing in software is of utmost importance because once you get to your job, your problems will be, again, very esoteric. So your ability to describe them clearly will be very important because most of the time you're actually not going to have anyone bailing you out. You're probably going to send screenshots to your boss who's in a meeting. He can't help you, so he's going to try to help you over Slack or Teams.
All right.
That's the reality of it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So there we go. Target value. Keep going.
Okay. And then let me minimize this screen. Do this here. Okay. And then we have a for loop. The for range loop that I'm using here is going to return each of the elements in the array and store them in the pair dict. Um, it's going to, return each of the elements in the array and store them in the dictionary. So it's basically going through the for loop, and then we are taking the array value and popping it inside of the dictionary here. And the index is basically just going to be, since it's using this, it's going to be numbers, and it's going to be 0 through however many elements are inside of the array. Once it's done that, I've declared an empty use values list to record the values that have been used to create the pair. And then I have another for loop here. It's going to return each of the elements in the dictionary. And I have another for loop that's going through each of the elements in the array. And then it's checking, it's doing a check to see if the current values of the dictionary and the array equal the target value. Okay. If so, if that's true, you're going to store the current value of the dictionary and place it in the used list. And I used an append to do that. And then after that, I'm going through another loop to return each of the elements in used values. And I'm basically checking inside the used values array to see if the current value in array is in the used values array. And if it finds that it is there, if it finds that it's there, that it's not there, it's going to store the current pair dict and array values in the pairs array list. So this just appends all my pairs into this pair array, and then I'm going to return the pairs array list.
Okay.
And
Okay.
and
I
then
think I followed most of that. Go up to your first loop. What's the point of the first loop here?
this one here, this one here, this one here.
Uh, Both for that matter.
Well, this one here, it's since I didn't know of a way to any other way to take an array and put it into a dictionary. This loops just does that for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question. How did you initially attack this problem? Before we ended class on Tuesday, I said, hey, there's typically two ways to do it. There's a brute force nested solution, and then the
Mhm.
optimal solution involves a dictionary. What this
Right.
looks like is you combined both of those solutions into like a mega solution that's really
Okay.
ugly to look at. So
Hmm.
what was your thinking going into this? Did you take what I said and try to combine the solution, or did you try to do one or the other? Which one did you try to
Yes.
do? Because it feels like you try to combine.
So I initially did the brute force solution for JavaScript, and then when trying to uh, get it to work similarly in Python, that's where I came across some problems trying to get that to work. So I ended up, uh, as you can see, the JavaScript one, I just pretty much used more or less a brute force uh, solution, and it took a lot less code. And my first thought was, why is my Python solution taking so much more code than the JavaScript solution did? Um, so that's where I noticed that my for loops weren't doing the same thing here in the JavaScript solution as they were in Python. So I just had to try to find a workaround to just to get it to do what I wanted to do. Initially, it was just spitting out. It was going through the loop multiple times and giving me multiple pairs of pretty much this. It was giving me double of the
It was
same
giving you
pairs to split
duplicate
flip.
pairs. Yeah, that's a
Right.
pretty common problem in this issue, in this challenge. All right, go up. All right, so there's no need to do the first loop, right? You're
Hmm.
putting stuff into the dictionary, but there's no purpose to that unless you're using the dictionary specifically for something. Your outer loop, now you're looping over this pair dictionary that you created that you didn't need in the first place. So you don't need those two loops at all. Um,
Okay.
so you combined the nested solution and then the dictionary solution into a mega solution that's not particularly efficient. You solved the problem, so good job on that. But this is messy for that reason. You need to pick one approach. So if you had to pick an approach you feel comfortable with, which would it
Mhm.
be? The brute force approach or the optimal dictionary approach?
I would rather use the optimal dictionary approach.
Okay. Is that what you did in your JavaScript solution?
No, I did not. I don't believe so because it's kind of the same thing here. I, use that for loop to put an array into a dictionary. And but then here I only just use this. This is all the code that did the comparison, you know. Um,
Okay, so that means you don't need the dictionary up top, right? So that line 16 right there, that is the brute force, more or less the brute force solution right there. Right? So if you're using that, there's no need for the dictionary. So that's extra code you don't need.
okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Thank you, Cisco. Did anyone
Mhm.
else solve this in Python or JavaScript? I think I may have confused you on Tuesday more than I helped you. Sorry about that. That's on me. Nobody else has a solution for this. Well, what were the challenges that you had? That's okay. What are some challenges that you face? You looked at this and then you can figure out a solution. What's the reason? Help me out here, guys.
I honestly didn't have time to get to dig into it too much, but I mean, just looking at it, like this is my common problem with most of the challenges. Like I'm struggling at where to start here.
Where to start? Yes, very common. Okay,
Yeah.
so that is something. You're struggling where to start. Okay. Anyone else have any other challenges? We'll see if we can tackle these challenges one by one.
Uh, for me, it's just Java syntax. I just have to get more used to it. It's just my own problem.
Okay, that means you don't know how to code. You need to work on that. That's what that means. I get that in technicals all the time. Oh, I don't know the syntax. Oh, so you don't know how to code. Huge problem.
It's a better problem to have than I have, I would say.
I, I mean, what's that? What's that famous American euphemism? Like everything's hard when you don't know what you're doing. Well, what other challenges do we have? Ah, here we go. Hey, thank you for that, Adam. I get this question a lot. How do you learn all the syntax of programming? I actually just use this note card. Don't do it on your phone because they charge you for that. But on your computer, this is a downloadable program. I'll throw it in the Slack channel. It's free. I erased all of my Anki decks accidentally years ago because I felt, quote unquote, I didn't need them anymore. And that is true. I didn't need them. But I had dozens of these. I had like a JavaScript deck. I had a Python deck. I had a CSS deck. I actually might even have some from my AWS exams that I passed. Maybe I can pull it up and show you. Maybe I still have some of that stuff. Why am I sorry? I have too many windows open. Oh, this is not working. Give me 1 second. Like, why was that not working? Okay.
I routinely have like a billion tabs and windows open. It's like the bane of my existence, but then
Ah,
I'm
there you go.
afraid to close them.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I deleted a bunch of mine, but I would literally just have this. This is an assembly class that I took a little while ago, right? And I just literally just have note cards. This is just assembly. So it's just like, what's the process to prepare and run an assembly program? And then there you go. And then you just click, hey, was this easy for you? Was this hard for you? It was hard for me. So show it to me again, less than 6 minutes. An operand represents what? And then I try to guess the answer, what a computer's working on or which location. That's it. It's just basic note cards. And you do this every day. And if you say easy, it's got a built-in algorithm that it will ask you the same question, but like days out as opposed to minutes out or hours out or tomorrow. So highly recommend Inky. I do it for everything. Well, I used to do it for everything. Now the problems that I face are much harder, so Inky's less helpful, but early on I used it a lot. So there you go. Thank you for that, Adam. Really good for syntax. Okay, so syntax, there you go. Where to get started. Anyone else run into any other problem? Those are probably the two most common. All right, let's tackle this. Two things I want to touch on before we jump into this. Before you run your code, and we didn't touch on this, was I think last week. Remember, I mentioned something about guessing to you, Joe, and I said, "Hey, we're going to touch on it," but we never did. Early on, when I was learning how to program, and I can't remember, it's some YouTuber. I was watching some YouTuber, and he said, "Hey, when you're programming, never guess. Like before you run your code, you should have a good idea of what the outcome of your code is going to be, right? You should have it in your mind. You should never just run your code blindly and not know what to expect, right? Because if you have an output in your mind and you run it, and what you get does not match what you thought you were going to get, right? You figure out why, and then you start improving your mental models on why things work the way that they're supposed to. And if you do that enough times, you will get better faster, right? So never guess. Software engineering isn't like other careers, right? Where things are pretty straightforward. Software engineering is just too big, it's too esoteric, it's too intractable, right? A semicolon will bring down your entire program, right? Out of 1,000 files, right? So you're never going to guess right. There's too many variables, so don't ever guess. That's the main thing. And we'll touch on that second thing here in a second, but we can get started with this. So let's look at our challenge. It says, write a method that takes an integer array and a desired sum. So what are we going to get here? What are your two parameters inside your function? They are just an array and a target value, right? Those are your parameters. So you're going to get this. Let's use this example right here. So you're going to get an array and you have to return. What are you returning here?
Target value?
No. What is the function returning?
An array.
Yeah. Good even. We know it's returning a result array. Okay. So now what am I going to iterate over?
An
What
array?
am I? Yep. I'm going to iterate over an array. And what is the challenge asking for?
The challenge is asking for you to find matching pairs that equal the target value.
Okay. Find matching pairs in the array passed to your function, right? That equal this target value, right? Create its own or their own array and then push into a result array, right? So I know that I'm going to have some kind of array of pairs, right? Uh, uh, yeah, I could just return pairs. That's fine. Okay, so I know that I'm going to have some kind of list of pairs, right?
Mhm.
So now I'm iterating over the input array, right? And the brute force is nested loops because I want the first loop to start on one, and I want the second nested loops to start on what?
On zero.
Not on zero, because my first loop, my outer loop is tagging the very first element of that array,
Oh,
right?
I thought you said on one. Okay, on one. You're gonna start on one.
All right, so this is how nested loops work. The outside loop is going to tag one first, and for every one, is going to tag every element, right? And we're looking for pairs, so I don't have to tag one again with the inner loop, right? The inner loop is going to tag, so it's going to go, see if we can follow here, right? First loop is going to tag one, inner loop is going to tag 2, 3, 4, and 5 for one. Then the outer loop is going to move to 2, and it's going to tag all of the rest. And it's going to go down the line for every single number, right? And we're going to find if any match this target. And if they do, put them in a little list, push it to our pairs array, and then return it. That's it.
Yeah.
Right. So here, so my inner loop is going to start at J what?
One.
And that's not going to be one because as the outer loop moves, right, we want the inner loop to move with it. So it's going to be I plus one, right? And it's going to be J less than R dot length. And then I'm going to still go by ones, right? So J plus plus. And then here, this is important. This is where conditional logic comes in. What do I need to check?
You want to check if array at index, whichever index you're at, and the array at J, array I plus array J
Yeah.
equals
But equals what?
equals the target value.
If equals target value. And if it does, what does that tell us?
That you got to, well, you got what you're looking for, so you can go ahead and push that into the
What
hairs
am I going to
array.
push?
You're gonna push both of those, array I and dash array J into that.
But I push them into their own little pair, right? Because
Mhm.
I know that those two pairs total the target value. I push them, and notice I wait until the loop finishes and I return pairs, right? And if I just wanted to test it before creating any test cases, right? I could just do that. And I can just execute that file, right?
All right.
And this is what? Some pairs. What did I mess up here? Some pairs is not defined. That's because it's exporting it. Some
Mhm.
pairs. For right now, I can just call that for now.
I forgot
Why didn't
about
that
that little
work?
trick.
Yeah, that didn't work. What's going on here? Some
Uh,
pairs is not defined. That's because I can't spell. Some pairs. There you go. There's snake case, camel case. There you go. List is 4 or 5. Right. But I could use any other test case, right? Like this one would give us 2, 5, and 3, 4. 2, 5, and 3, 4. There you go. Questions about the solution?
I forgot about that little trick.
Which one?
Doing the I plus one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Honestly, if I didn't have, if I just started it, actually, I'm not going to get into that. Any questions about this?
in the where it says I plus one, would I plus plus, wouldn't that mean the same thing? Or does that not apply like that?
We're not incrementing, right? We're just, well, I don't think that changes anything. Let's see.
Well, doesn't the I plus plus mean I plus equals one? So it would change the
Yeah.
I. If it, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
but you're
So,
already changing the I.
well,
You could do that. You don't typically see that. Doesn't change the outcome at all, though. But I will try this. If you didn't know the I plus one and you did 0, does this still work? This is what I wanted to get to earlier. Does this still work?
No.
It doesn't?
Mm-mm.
Why not?
Well, you're going to be comparing the same numbers with each other. So as I is moving, J is moving right along with it. So it's going to be comparing 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3, so on and so forth. Yeah.
So it does work, but what's the problem? It does kind of work, right? You get the right answer, but well, you don't get the right answer. You get the right numbers, but you get
Yeah.
duplicates.
Right.
And the reason for that is exactly what Zisco said. You traverse the same numbers over and over, right? So they can't differentiate between 2, 5 and 5, 2. Same set, different order. So this is just a brute force nested solution. Notice you don't need the dictionary here. If you use the dictionary, you wouldn't need the nested loops. One loop would be enough. Questions?
Can you show the dictionary version?
Yes, but probably later because we still have a whole lesson to get through. There's actually look at this function, read this function. If I give you the last test case here, what's going to happen? I'm going to give you this test case. What's going to happen in my function? Read it. So if I give you this
It's gonna
and I
return
run
nothing.
this, what's it going to return?
Should be unable
Undefined.
to find pairs. Oh, well,
Hmm.
yeah, you haven't defined that. So yeah, just
No one's answered the right answer yet. What's it going to return?
An empty array.
Yeah, nothing was pushed to it because nothing met the conditions, right? So it's just an empty list because that's what I initialized on line 2. I could have made I could have did a ternary there or some kind of conditional logic that says, hey, that list is empty. Return this instead. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is you could take the length of pairs, right? Do a ternary and then just return, pairs or, string, no pairs or whatever it says. No pairs match criteria or whatever.
I had another interesting thing that happened when I actually tried to run my test using it's a separate test file and doing the installing array equal and all that. So even though I had array equal installed, had it pretty much set up exactly the same way as the other uh, challenges we've ran, I could not get my arrays to give me the true result. They all came out false.
Do you
So
know why?
I could not figure it out. So I ended up using an alternative low dash command to do it. So, and the low dash, it didn't have, low dash didn't give me a problem, and they all came out and passed, passed the test. I did look into it, and it said that interestingly, JavaScript, it assesses the arrays by reference instead of by value or what's inside them, something to
Yeah,
that
it,
effect.
it had to do an issue with deep equals probably.
Hmm.
And that's why I wasn't reading it, right? Because you have nested lists, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So that's good. I'll touch on the dictionary version of this later, if there's time.
I have a
Um,
question.
go ahead.
So in the thing, do the pairs have to be in order, like 3, 1, 3 plus 1, 1 plus 5, 5 plus 8, or 8 plus 2? Because is the way that's done set up that way that it has to be back to back? Or am I missing
The,
something?
typically, this challenge comes in a lot of flavors, but the normal flavor is as long as you return the pairs, the order doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't think so, but am I missing something? Because if it's starting at 0 on the one I and the I plus 1 on the J, is it going to always just do the the pairs right adjacent to each other? Which works still for the first two because there's a 4 plus 5 and a 3 plus 4, but
Yeah, Garrett, I played with that as well. You can actually flip-flop those what you're pushing into that array there. You can flip-flop them around. You can switch array I to with array J and vice versa to get more of to massage it and get what you're kind of looking at there. There's also a sort
because they
function.
should be able to do, like, for the example, the first array, you should be able to try 2 plus 5 and 1 plus 4 and
It goes in
but
order that is passed in. I think you're thinking about this too
I may
deeply.
overthink
It,
it.
it doesn't really
I
matter
just
as long
yeah,
as you can
I
get
get
the
it.
right answer for right now.
Mhm.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not missing something there.
No,
Okay.
you're not missing anything. I mean, you could have iterated backwards and then formulated it that way, right? But that's a
Yeah.
dumb way. I mean, I don't know if it's a dumb way to do it, but I mean, nothing stops you from doing it that way. And if you did it in the same O of N, it'd be just as optimal, I guess, but it's like what for, right?
Right.
Alrighty. So there you go. Brute force solution, probably the most common solution to that problem. Alrighty. We'll definitely touch on the dictionary one because I think this is actually a really important problem for that. But after today's lesson is actually very. Did anyone look at today's lesson? It's what did we do on Tuesday?
It's just higher order functions. We did that in Tuesday in JavaScript, and today's Python.
Exactly. Right. So it's the same stuff. That's fine. I'll pull it up if I need it. Okay, so today's literally the exact same thing. So this lesson shouldn't be as long because the concepts are exactly the same. So high order functions in Python. What did I call high order functions in JavaScript? It's just what? Fancy name for it?
Loops. Lots of loops. No?
Yeah, but it's just syntactical sugar, right? It's not any more optimized than a normal loop most of the time. Make sense? So anything you can do with high order functions, you can do it with a simple for I and range loop in Python or a while loop, whatever the use case calls for. So here we go. High order functions map. They just write a double function, literally identical to Tuesday, right? Map is built in. They pass in the double function and then the list of integers, right? And here, actually, if you print, right, this specific return value, right here, you get a map object. Has anyone encountered this before? We won't go too deeply into it. Just know that this is normal. You haven't done anything wrong, right? This just kind of goes to the idea that everything is an object and object-oriented programming, which Python is an object-oriented language, but we'll get into that. But if you want to look at the nitty-gritty of it, right? It's a map object stored at this place in memory. That's how you read it, right? You don't need to know that, but that's just for reference, right? Right here, they just print the dir of this specific return value, and it gives you this. These are just methods on that object, methods and properties. A method and an object is just another word for a function, right? As opposed to a property or an attribute. So don't worry about this stuff. We're going to go over this stuff when we go over OOP. Just if you see it, know what it is. The main thing that they're trying to get at here is Python has iterables. What do you think an iterable is?
A data type that can be iterated through.
That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. But you can also convert these iterables, and this is probably the most common conversion, right? Convert this iterable into something that you understand, right? Like a set or a list, right? This is by far the most common conversion. People convert iterables to lists. Why? Because people are familiar with lists. They're easy to manipulate. They're mutable. You can change them. You can add to them. It's easy to iterate over them. Make sense? By far the most common thing. If you get some kind of iterable, just cast it as a list. Then print it. Then you'll see what you're dealing with. Then go forward for now. Easiest way. Eventually, you won't always have to cast it for a list. Remember early on last week, when I was telling you it's very normal for new programmers to always break up a string into a list and iterate it? It's kind of one of those. For right now, you don't know how to manage or deal with iterables. That's okay. Just cast them into a list, manipulate them, do anything that you need to them for right now. And then eventually you'll grow out of that. You'll see something. You're like, okay, that doesn't necessarily have to be casted to a list. It's like very similar to the string, right? Okay, you don't have to break that up into a list. You could just iterate on it as a string, get what you need, and then move on. Make sense? Very similar to Cisco's moving things into a dictionary and not needing them. That's a very common thing people do when they start programming. You always have a lot more code than you need, right? because you're like trying to break it down into pieces and you don't know the most efficient way yet. Super normal. Okay, so this is just very similar to that. Okay, there's also a filter. Can anybody read this? What is this saying right here? It's filtering a what? Filter is a high order function.
Yeah.
And
It looks like
filter,
oh.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying it's filtering my list by even numbers and then throwing them back into a list and storing them into return value.
Okay, so that, yep. So that tells us that high order functions in Python return what?
Return a value.
They return, we were just talking about it. If they keep casting it into a list, they return a what?
Iterable.
Yes, they return an iterable and they're just casting it back into the list, right? So keep that in mind. So if you use one of these high order functions in Python, they're going to return an iterable, understand what an iterable is, and know you could just cast it into a list and then go from there. Okay, just like JavaScript, reduce is a bit of an oddball. First off, you have to import reduce in order to use it. And this is actually super common in a lot of programming languages. But for Python, it's a little strange because typically a lot of the stuff's built in and you don't have to import it. But this, you have to import this. Just like we imported stuff in the JavaScript files, like for testing, very similar in that vein, right? You import reduce and then you can actually use it. Right? And this from func tools, you just import reduce, and then reduce is a method, is a function, the higher order function you can then use in that file, right? So this is sum, we're reducing it, which is what exactly? What's going to be printed return value? What does the high order function reduce do? Reduce just does what? It just reduces everything to one number, right? So you can multiply them together, you can add them, I suppose you can subtract them. I suppose you could divide them. I don't know what kind of output you would get there, but when you're just trying to reduce something to one value. So here, we use specifically just add everything up together. We pass in the list, we return the value, and we get an integer, right? All together, let's say you wanted to take a list of integers, filter out the odd integers, double those left, and sum the double integers. This is what it would look like, right? Filter my list by is even, right? Then you take that filtered evens list, you double them using map, right? And then you add all the doubled together using reduce. You print sum, you get 12, right? This is a clunkier version of what in JavaScript. We did something like this on Tuesday. Here, they're not strung together, but this is just what?
That was your not your nested functions, but it was like your function one after another, after another, after another. I just can't think of
Yeah, exactly. Remember when we strung together .map?
Yeah.
Right, replace, reduce. Now, JavaScript, the nice thing about JavaScript is lets you string all these high order functions together. Python's not so nice in that specific regard, so it doesn't let you do that to a certain extent, right? But this really, like if you had let some bar equal R, and you apply some kind of map to it, and then you let total equal some bar, and then you reduced it, right? This These two things are exactly the same, right? What I did here, what I'm trying to do here, and what they're doing here are exactly the same. Different syntax, different languages, but the concept is exactly the same. It reminds you of which challenge that we did on Tuesday. Very similar to the loop within Armstrong numbers, right? Yes? Okay. Let's look at the challenges for today. Very quick lesson. Challenges, anagrams, and credit check. I'm thinking anagrams, I think it's easier. So we'll look at that one first. Go ahead and open anagrams and read through it. What's an anagram?
Basically, where you have two different words and their individual letter or characters or number of characters in the word match in both of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, exactly. My favorite one is cinema and Iceman. That's an anagram because you can rearrange the words of Iceman or cinema, vice versa, and they equal each other. One of the more really important constraints that you have is here. It's telling you not to do what?
The sorted method.
Sorted. I think in Python is sorted, I believe. And then in JavaScript, it's just dot sorted, sort or sorted. I think they're both used actually. Can't remember. So don't use that. The main reason is it just does the work for you, right? Does anyone know the second reason why people typically don't use built-in sorting methods for languages? I don't expect you to know this, but by chance, you might.
Because they have certain quirks involved with them where they I forget if it's JavaScript or Python or both, but they only sort by alphabetically or numerically, and you have to force it to sort.
It does do that, but you can pass in a function and have it sorted the way that you want.
Right.
You can. Here's something to understand about programming. Typically, built-in sorting functions are not very optimal. So very rarely are the built-in functions in any language are going to be the best way to sort something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're not very efficient. All right, so keep that in mind. That's generally the rule of thumb for everything. Okay, so this one's pretty straightforward. Does anybody know how to tackle this challenge right here? Anagrams, just off the cuff right now. How would you start this challenge if I was doing anagrams?
With a for loop to iterate.
Yep, but everything in programming is a loop. So we already know that. So we're going to iterate. Yes. We're going to iterate over what?
We're going to iterate over the first string of characters.
Over string one. Okay. Then what?
Then we want to just well, anagram means anagram. And then we want to I'm gonna basically
All
say
right,
what
someone besides Cisco. You're about to do this, right? So you're
We could,
iterating over string one, then what are you going to do?
well, we could iterate backwards.
Irrelevant. Yes, you
Oh,
could.
yeah.
You could punch a baby in the face
Well,
too.
but then we're gonna put, but we're gonna put, I'm just thinking that part. And then we're gonna push it, in, into a new, or, um,
What you're saying here
a
is
string.
actually important. Okay, yeah, maybe. Well, you need to do something here. We're iterating over a string, and then we need to do what here?
Not talking in programming language, but just like, basic English, like you're going to take that first string and you're going to compare it against the second string.
Yes, but you're doing what new programmers often do. You kind of just took a big bite out of the challenge. You can't, computers don't understand that. That's too big of a bite, too big of a step, right? You literally just wrote all the code in your statement. So that's not very helpful. I'm
Would
gonna
you
compare this string to that string. Okay, but a computer doesn't understand that. So how do we break that up into smaller pieces? We're gonna iterate over string one. So the function's taken in two strings, right? It's taken in two strings, two parameters. Okay, we're iterating over string one. Cool. That's a good start. We can do that. We know what that code looks like. All right, now what?
do we
We
have
need
to split it and then check the value of each character or like save the value?
So you don't necessarily have to split it, but if it makes you feel more comfortable to split it, you can. All right, so you split it, you iterate over it, and then you need to do what? What was that second part?
Check the value of it?
Check. You don't have to check the value. You have the value. If it's a C, it's a C. If it's an A, it's an A. We're not we're not getting to the comparison yet. What do we need to do with every character? We need to do what? All right, here we go. I'm going to give you rough pseudocode of how you solve this, right? So you're going to iterate over string one. Somehow you need to keep track of all letters in string one. Somehow you figure that out. We need to keep track of all the letters in string one and how many times they appeared. Because if you have 7 E's in string one, you need how many E's in string two? 7. That's the only way it's going to make an anagram, right? If you have 3 B's in string one, you need how many B's in string two? 3. Okay. So I'm going to iterate over string one. Somehow I need to keep track of the letters and the count, right? Then what's my next step? Now I iterated over string one. I kept track of all the letters and their respective counts. Now what am I going to do? What's the next step?
Iterate over string two.
There you go. Easy. I know that's no longer commented, but whatever. Okay, iterate over string two. Excellent. Now what?
Same thing. Keep track of the numbers or the letters.
Somehow keep track of letters and
How many times they appear.
their respective count. Check if the letters and their counts match. That's it. More or less in 4 steps. Right? This is a lot more specific than just saying, hey, you need to compare the strings. Well, how do you compare them? Right? Am I comparing length? Am I comparing, number of characters? I'm comparing something very specific here, right? That the order of these characters doesn't matter as long as what matters. The number of times that they appear are the same, and all the characters, right, are the same in both strings. So if I have an A in string 1, I have to have at least one A in string 2. Because the minute the one letter exists in one string and it doesn't exist in the other, that's it. It can't be an anagram, right? All right, so that's anagram. So that's roughly how you do that one. I would tackle that one because that one's easier. Now let's look at the second one. This is credit check. Take a minute to read this. This is a little tricky. And I kind of want to walk over the steps for this as well. Let's look at it. Oh, I suppose we could look at Python. Credit check. All right. So what's gonna be the parameter of this function?
The one written in there, the str.
So what's it gonna be? There's a mistake here, actually. Can anyone catch it on line 1? There's an error here in the syntax. Anybody know what it is?
Str is a reserved word? Or
Yes.
There.
It's a data type. They screwed this up. Look at that. Even instructors. Well, I didn't write this, but someone screwed this up, right? All right. So what's your parameter? It's what data type?
It's an
integer.
Is it? Because here it says it's a string. Which is it?
It should be an integer.
Look at your test cases.
Um,
So it's a string.
oh, so we're gonna have to. They made it more complex.
Okay.
What the heck?
So here we go. And that's okay. And the reason for this, and you don't know this yet, but when you take user input in Python, it always comes in as a string.
I see.
All right. So when you start building your applications and you start taking user input, you're always going to have to cast it to an integer if that's what you need.
Okay.
It will always come in as a string. Okay.
Okay.
So when you type it into forms on the internet, it's coming in on that back end as a string.
All right.
Yes.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So cool. So this is what it's saying. The only thing you need to return is if it's valid or invalid, right? That's a simple conditional here, but it's got to check the number, right? All right. So you're getting a string. Cool. You're getting a string. So we're going to write a function that takes in a string, right? What's the first thing we want to do? What's the first thing this function is going to do? It's taking in a string.
Iterate. Oh no, and convert it into an integer?
No, you're getting one big string. So what's the first thing we need to do? Look at what we need to do. It's right here.
You need to break it down into individual pieces.
Yep. So what's the first piece?
You're going to use the rightmost number. And so basically, you probably want to go backwards when you're taking it apart.
Okay, from the rightmost digit, which is the check digit moving left, double the value of every other digit. Maybe, but we still have one giant string.
Split it.
Not the, yeah. Why do we need to split it?
So that way we just have each individual number and we're not going down everything all at once.
Yep, we're gonna have to split it, right? We're gonna have to split it, and then what?
And then we want to iterate, well, we split it. So we
Put it
have
into a list?
Splitting it does put it into a list. So now we have a list. We have a list of strings. Is that what we want?
We want integers.
All right, so we need to cast every string in my list to an integer, right? That's going to be easier to deal with in the next steps. All right, so now I have a list of all of these integers. Cool. Now what do we want to do?
Iterate over them in reverse.
There you go. Iterate over them in reverse. Now we can do a couple things. You can iterate over them in reverse, or you can just reverse them and then iterate forward and then just reverse at the end. Both will have the same outcome, but it's up to you. Let's just say for the sake of this example, we're going to iterate, and I misspelled, iterate over them, starting from the last one. Cool. So now we're iterating. Now, inside this loop, I'm going to do what?
You're going to double. You're going to double each value. You're going to double it, and you basically probably want to.
Isn't it doubling like alternate values every other?
No.
Yeah, that's double the value of every other digit, right? So we're going to double the value of every other digit starting from the end, right? Okay. Cool. Double the value of every other digit. Awesome. Now, what do we want to do here? You can do a couple different things, but I'm going to kind of steer you in one direction because it's going to be a little easier. All right, so let's say we handle the double every other digit. Cool, we've done that. So inside the loop. Now, what do we want to do? What's going to make it the easiest?
For I in range?
Yeah, you can do whatever loop. It doesn't really matter. But here on this step, I want to know, after doubling each alternate value, right? The next step is to sum digits over 10. That's the next step. Where do we want to do that? We can do it in here, right? We could sum digits over 10 within loop. We could do that, but that's going to make it a little harder for you right now. So after you do this, I would almost recommend just loop again. Just do another loop. Do another loop. And sum any digits over 10. And then you're going to have some kind of output.
Okay.
Right? And then do another loop and sum the results. And then check if number is valid. This is a bunch of different loops, but they're not nested. They're separate. They're standalone. That's the way that I will handle it first if you get to it. Now, can you do everything in one loop? Yes. But if you do it in multiple separate loops, I think you're going to have a better understanding of the workflow that you need to solve this problem. And then you can always go back and refactor it and just clean it up and do one loop. Okay, so in order of what's going to happen, I'm going to open breakout rooms. You're going to go in there and work on anagrams first, right? And then probably take a break. Actually, after this, take a break. After this, we're going to take a 10-minute break. Then you're going to come back, work on anagrams, right? We'll probably bring the class back in, go through anagrams, right? Then we'll break out again for credit check. And if there's time, and I think there will be, we'll go over the dictionary example for some pairs.
Could you Slack that pseudocode? Outside?
This is junk, Joe, but yes. I'm embarrassed this is even being recorded. But yeah, that's fine. You're gonna notice I'm pretty lazy with
Good
my
question, Joe.
pseudocode.
Good question.
I'm pretty lazy with my pseudocode. I don't know if you've noticed every time I give examples, have you noticed that most of the time I don't actually write real code? I just do like some code, cat sauce.
That's
But all right, I will send this out. All right,
Cat
take a
sauce
break.
works.
Sorry, guys. This recording. How do we do? I think in the little message I said character match. The folder says anagrams, but then the file says character match. I feel they should have just called it anagrams, but that's besides the point. Anyway, how do we do? I had a drill sergeant when I went to basic training a while ago. I had a drill sergeant that called everybody heroes. So sometimes I call people heroes because two reasons. One, who doesn't like to be called hero? And two, comes in handy when I forget the person's name. How do we do? Can someone say something? Because I don't know if my headphones are going to work.
I'm still working on it slowly, but I'm making progress.
Okay, still working on it. Anyone get further?
Unfortunately, I spent most of my time in W3 schools trying to see if, like, what's the most efficient way to do this.
I was also
Okay, don't worry about efficiency, just worry about trying to get the right solution. Optimization will come in later. Joe, I see your lights went out.
I don't know how the Wi-Fi is still on. I'm in an Airbnb right now, and the power went off. I don't know how the Wi-Fi is still working, but there's still power, so my battery will eventually die. So here I am in the darkness.
Wi-Fi is still up though. That's good.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me at all. But
Maybe only part of the house went out.
no, it's like dark, complete pitch black darkness all over the house, and I flipped all the circuit breakers back on. I'm trying to mess with it. I don't know what the hell the issue is.
Do you have power to your computer?
I mean, just like what it's just going off battery power right now. Fortunately, it's fully charged, but here we are.
Okay.
All righty. Did anyone get further?
No, I just got stuck in my for loop doing the first iteration. So,
Okay, let's walk through it so we can not only go over this one, but then kind of get you started on credit checks here. Here we go. Desktop 2. Sure. Okay. You can see my little VS Code, right?
Yes.
Alrighty. So here's my little crappy pseudocode that I posted in the channel. Let's try to follow it because it will work. So what's the first thing we need to do here? And we're going to do everything in Python now because this is supposed to be a Python lesson. All right. So what's the first thing we need to do?
Iterate over string 1.
We are going to, yes.
use a for, yeah.
I'm going to for char in string 1. All right. I'm going to iterate over string 1. Then I'm going to do what?
It has to count the number of times that it repeats.
Not the number of times that well, kind of the number of characters and how many times they show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
What data structure are we going to use? We could use a list, but that's going to get really messy. So instead, we're going to use a what?
Dictionary.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's use the dictionary. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to call the dictionary letters, and I am going to iterate over string one, and this is how I'm going to keep track of them. The key is going to be the letter that I just iterated on, right? And the value is just going to be the respective count. How many times have I seen the letter, right? On the first letter A, I've seen it once, so I'm going to give it the value of one. If I see it again, I'm just going to increment that value. If I haven't seen it at all, I'm going to put that letter in there with the number one as the value because I have seen it once. Okay. So for char in string, I'm iterated over string. And so let's take one of the use cases, right? Like let's, there you go. We're going to do this one. We're going to take this as our use case, right? All right. So I'm iterating string one is charm. So on the very first iteration of string one, my letters dictionary is completely empty, right? So what do I need to do?
You need to, well, in Python, you need to assign it to the letters dictionary.
Yes, but at first I need to check if it's in there, right?
Right.
So if it's not in there, if char not in letters, does that work? If it's not in there, what do I want to do?
Return early.
Nope.
Add it to the dictionary.
Add it to the dictionary. All right, so it's letters, brackets, char. That's going to give it the key, and I'm going to give it the letter one because, hey, I just iterated over the letter C. It's not in the dictionary yet. So I am going to give it. I am going to assign it as the key C and the value one. Make sense? Let's do this. If I did a print statement here is character match, and I pass in these two strings, right? If I do this, and I am in the Python module, I have what in here? So if I do character, if I do Python character match dot py, yep. If I run this, right, you don't see anything. But what if after this, I print letters? And I'm only going to run through one character, right? So here I put a break statement. So here we go. It's just going to do one iteration, and then it's going to print out what that dictionary looks like after the very first iteration, right? So I do this. What do you notice?
It's got the first letter and number in there.
Yeah, it's got the first letter and number in there. Good. Okay. So that works. I put it in there properly, and this is exactly what I wanted. After the very first iteration, it tags C, it puts C in my dictionary, it gives it the value of one. Okay, so I iterated, C wasn't in there, right? So if it's not in there, I'm going to put it in there and assign a value of one. However, if it is in there, what do I want to do? If that letter is in there, so if I go over another C, right?
Yeah, you want to go to that key that C is in.
Yep. So
And-
grab that same key and do what?
And place do 1 plus, or you can increase it.
Yeah, just increment it. All right. So we know that if it's not in there, I'm going to put it into the dictionary. However, if it's already in there, the key's in there and it already has a value, right? So just increment that value because that means that, hey, C or whatever letter has showed up more than once, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now here, I can just return letters and see what do I have. All right, so it's going to iterate over string one, and it's just going to return that dictionary and see what I have. All right, so my dictionary is showing I have one C, one H, one A, one R, one M. Is that correct for charm?
Yes.
Awesome. So I have populated the dictionary letters with the string charm. Now, if I wanted to check this, I can put another M in there, charm with two M's, and then I've run my function again. And notice N now has two, right? because I incremented. There's two M's in there, so rightfully so, the M key has an integer 2 because of two instances, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's good. Now what do I want to do? So we already did the first two steps here. Iterate over string one, somehow keep track of the letter and the count. Now, what's the next step?
You just want to duplicate that for loop.
Yep, let's loop again in string 2 this time.
Right.
And now what do I want to do?
You could do the exact same thing.
I'm going to do something very similar, but not exactly the same thing
Yeah.
because I don't want to add. Now, what would make sense here?
Compare what's in string one, or compare what's in letters dictionary to the letters in string 2.
Yeah, but that's going to be kind of hard because one's a dictionary and one's a string that I'm currently iterating over. So what could I do here? And this is the crux to this entire problem. Oh, Art, do you have a question? Do you have your hand raised?
Unmute. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm stuck on something, and I don't want to take you off track here. But remember, we did the challenge where it says like, hey, if it's 0, then eliminate it. If it's 1, eliminate it. So it was eliminating values like right off the bat. So what I have in mind here, like, could we put something in at the very top that says, hey, look, if the length of string 1 doesn't equal the length of string 2, then just return false. Just do a quick elimination.
We are going to do that in a minute. Yes, we're going to get to it.
Okay.
That is an edge case.
So
All right, we can do that now. So this challenge is anagrams, right? The exact same number of characters need to be equal in both strings, right? So what Art was saying is one of the edge cases is if the length is different, there's no way they can be anagrams, right? So that would entail just a length of string 1, right? If it doesn't equal the length of string 2, right, we can just return false. Right? That's an edge case because there's no way for it to be an anagram if that's true. Right? So there you go. That works. There's another thing we need to do with that here in a second, but we'll leave that for later. So we took care of that edge case. Let's go ahead and take care of another slight edge case. Let's look at what do you notice about line 6 here in our test file?
You got capital letters and lowercase letters.
Yeah, this is going to work if capital C doesn't equal little c, right? So we could, right at the beginning, right, just say S1 equals string 1, and then how do we lowercase it? Just lower, right?
Lower, yeah.
And then S2 equals string 2, lower. There you go. Now we're only dealing with lowercase characters. So there you go. I just make that S1, and then this I could just make S2, right?
Yeah.
All right, so there you go. That solves all of our edge cases.
Okay.
All right, so now what do we want to do with the second loop?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I just had a question.
Go ahead.
So in mine, I did for when you're converting them to lowercase, I did the dot case fold. Is that any different?
Dot case fold.
Oh yeah.
Case fold.
It's similar.
I have no idea what this is.
Should do the same thing.
Method in Python used for case insensitive string comparison. It converts a string to lower handling special characters. It's more comprehensive than the lower method. Probably overkill. Lower would be fine, but yeah, it looks like that would work as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, cool. Yeah, that would work as well. Back to the second loop and the crux of this whole thing.
So you are looking, so you could also, similar to what we did with the edge cases, for the second loop, couldn't we ask if check if the letter is even, check if character in string 2 is in letters, or
Okay.
right?
All
And
right,
if
let's do that.
and if not, then we can just return or you know, we don't have to do anything else, right? Because it's not going to match up as an anagram.
Okay, so if character in string 2, not in letters, what do we do?
We can just return what's our
False.
yeah,
We're going to return false, right? Because there's no way it could
right,
be an anagram if a letter in character in string 2 is not in string 1, right? Or in that
right,
dictionary
right.
that's made up of letters from string 1. That is true. Okay, so if character is not in letters, return false. Awesome. But if it is,
Mm-hmm.
what do we have to do?
Would
It
we just
is,
continue to check the next ones?
Yeah, but what do we have to do to as we continue iterating?
you have to make sure the count, we have to make, we have to make sure the letter has the same count in
All right.
within string 2.
So here's the crux of the whole thing. We've populated the dictionary letters with
Mm-hmm.
all the letters from string 1, right? We
Right,
added them to here.
right.
We can just subtract them on the second loop,
Ah, okay.
right?
Right,
Just subtract them. If it's not in there, we return false. But if it is in there, then we just subtract them from letters because it's in there, right? So char minus equals 1, right?
mm-hmm.
Minus equals 1. All else return true. There's going to be a slight error here, but this is going to get us pretty close, right? So let's look at everything that's happening. We lowercase both strings coming in because we looked at our test case and should be case insensitive, right? We create a dictionary of letters so we can keep track of the letters in each string and their respective counts. We do a quick comparison of length because we know if they're not equal lengths, it can't be anagrams. So we return early, easy. We loop once, we populate our dictionary with all the characters and their respective values. And then the second loop is what does the trick, right? We go subtract, we've already populated the dictionary. Let's just subtract the same letters, right? Because if these two are anagrams, the dictionary is going to be full of letters with what respective value?
Full of letters with what? Oh,
Zero.
yeah.
0.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they're anagrams, that means you populate a dictionary with all the letters in charm, but then the second loop subtracts all of them, and they are anagrams. Therefore, all the values are 0. And if all the values are 0, you can return true because it is an anagram.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually wrote true here at the end of this function. That's actually wrong. We have to check if all of them are 0.
Right.
Right? So let's go do that. You could do another loop. You could do just a simple another loop for num in. Do you know how to get the values in only the values in letters? Does anyone know?
Values.
Yeah, letters dot values, right? And if num does not equal 0, doesn't equal 0, you can return false. And if this loop ends, we know it's true. That means all of them are zeros, right? That tells you that it's an anagram. You can do something like this. So this is going to be pretty close. There's something we haven't accounted for yet, but let's run this. And I'm just going to run that one test case here on line 4. It's saying false because I have an extra n. So you're right, that's not an anagram, right? I remove the m, I run it again. This should give me true. It does give me true, right? Let's try one of the harder ones though. Will this one, will this work? This is going to have to account for what?
The capitalization?
Yeah, the capitalization. If I just run it, yeah, it does account for it. True. Now we can run the test file. We can get rid of this. Right. We can start running the test file, and that's just Python character test.py. Run it. I get 4 trues. Let's see. 4 trues. There you go. This works.
Why are you getting 4 truths? Oh, because okay, equals false. Okay, there you go. Never
There's an
mind.
error here. Right? This should be what? This
Be
doesn't
false.
seem right.
Yeah.
All right, so there's something we haven't accounted for, and that's kind of the thing that I was. Let's put a print statement here, and let's print the letters here. Let's see if we can figure it out. Actually, I shouldn't have deleted this, but we'll do this. We'll put a print statement here. Print letters. There you go. And I'm just going to run this. Let's see what's happening. Why is this not working? Print letters. Did I not print letters?
Can't
No.
match.
Oh, I see.
Oh, okay.
Let's print. I'm going to print it as we're looping. How about that? Print letters. There's an issue here I'm trying to point at here. Here we go. What's the issue? Can anyone catch it based on, this is probably pretty small. Let's see if I can make this bigger.
It looks like it didn't take away the H, the lowercase h. Did catch it.
So let's look at our test case here. These are anagrams, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but when we look at that last one, it's missing the H. What happened? So we're populating correctly.
All right.
So let's think about this. We're populating correctly because this is right. And that's on that first iteration, right? We haven't done anything. This is a print statement. So the first loop is working properly. What's the issue? It's with the second loop, right?
Yeah.
These are anagrams. That means that all of these values should be what?
0.
0. So something is not being decremented properly, right? So the issue is these conditionals right here. There's something wrong here.
All right.
And the issue is here. Can anyone figure it out? If char is not in letters, but we also have to figure out what here.
Char is not in letters. Ah, so if it's not in letters
And
also not in string 2.
no, it has to do with the value, right? And letters char value is what?
Is 0.
Not 0, but it has to be greater than 0.
Greater than 0.
Right?
Okay.
Let's see what that does. If we run this again, we know that the last line there has to be zeros because we're looking at the test case that I'm running, and this most definitely is an anagram, right? So I run this, and the H is still there. So it's not greater than 0.
Less than 0? Well, less than one, or let's see.
Think about it.
If char not in letters and letters char is greater than letters char is greater than. Let me think about it.
What's the issue here? This is pretty close.
Mm-hmm. I see that. And thoughts.
Thoughts?
Letters char is greater than.
We could also change the logic, right? Like, would it be easier to think about it is if the letter was in there? If it was in there, think about it. I'm going to move this down, decrement this a little, make this a little smaller, right? Would it be easier to think about it this way? What if the char is in letters? Char in letters. So this character is in there, and that count is more than 0. That means we need to decrement.
Okay.
And if that's both of those things are not true, then we return false.
Okay.
That probably gets us closer. Or the way that we were thinking about it was wrong.
Okay.
No, false is capital F, right? Yep. All right. Does that get us closer? Does it?
It looks like it did the same thing.
Looks exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be your problem now. Give me 1 second. Why is this not working? Shift C. That didn't work. Just Slack you the solution. Find out what the issue is there, right?
Okay.
But that's very, very close. Try to figure out how that works, and then we'll touch on it later. But right now, I want to get you started on the next one as well. But this is awfully close, what I sent you. Look at that last second loop. That condition was slightly off. But before we go, you have this test case. But I think we can talk about it now. It says this test is for the challenge question. And they give you, it's the exact same challenge, the code that I just sent you. You're going to figure out what's wrong with that code, fix it, right? Because it should work. And then how do we tackle this? We can account for capital letters already. The code that I sent you does that. Well, what's one more thing we need to account for in this specific test case on line 10?
We're not seeing your code, Garen.
Oh, sorry. I forgot that I stopped sharing. I ran out of real estate and I had to. Okay. So this is in your test file. This is the challenge test case. We already accounted for uppercase letters, but we need to account for what else in this test case?
Punctuation.
Spaces.
No, there's actually no punctuation, but there is spaces. All right, so how would we handle this? I'm not going to show you the code for it, but how would we handle it?
I thought the statement comparing length, wouldn't that eliminate it
No,
in the beginning? No.
it would complicate things more because it could be an anagram and one could have more spaces than the other, I suppose.
Oh, you can strip the spaces out of it, can't you?
There you go. So when you lowercase it, go ahead and strip the spaces as well.
Okay.
Replace the spaces with nothing, right? You could even iterate and not and account for the spaces in your loop, but that would be messy.
Mm-hmm.
The best is to lowercase it and strip it, or strip it and lowercase it, however you see fit first,
Okay.
and then iterate over it. Make sense? So
Mm-hmm.
that is just one extra step. That's it. Okay, so that challenge is left for you to do. Fix that code and actually try to solve that last challenge, right? Account for this space. And if you don't know how to remove spaces from a string, pull it up, W3 schools, Google, and figure that out. Yes?
Yeah.
Alrighty. So that's anagrams. Let's go to credit check. And let me pull my pseudocode here. This is just a not so great pseudocode that I wrote earlier, but I want to get you started on this at the very least. Alrighty, so this is your why is the file called credit check, but the function is called check credit? What do some editing on these repos, gentlemen and ladies? This is a mess. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's look at it. Credit check. Write a function that takes in a string. We have that. Cool. Split it. Now we have a list of strings. Cool. Let's do list of strings. How do we want to split it? We want to split it by character. What's an easy way to do that in Python? We
List.
saw it in the lesson.
List.
Yeah, just list. List, str. Boom. There you go. Now, if you need to cease list of strings, right? And you could just hot dog. And nothing stops you. Yeah, I haven't written any of the tests yet, or I haven't run the test file, but nothing stops you from just building in a print statement with the function call, right? And running your function just to kind of see if you're on the right track. So this is credit check. Okay, so Python credit check.py. Okay, so I have a list of strings. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It says split it. Now we have a list of strings. Cast every string in my list into an integer. Right?
Mm-hmm.
List of ints. And this is list comprehension, right? You can cast every element, int for, well, I think element, right? Element in list of strings, right? I think that's right. And here you could just list of ints. There you go. This is list comprehension. W3 schools it. If you're not comfortable with it, but it's just a fancy way to do a math. So here we go. I'm going to run it and check what should I have here when I run this function. I should have a list of what?
Numbers.
List of numbers. What happened?
Invalid literal int with base 10 h. Why is it just picking out the h?
Ah. Oh, this is a good learning experience. What happened? What am I calling my function with?
The reserved word.
No?
You're calling your function with the string.
Yeah, it's just a hot dog. It should be a number. There you go. This will work. You can't cast the letter H to an integer, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the error. But you definitely can cast the string 1 into the integer 1. And that's the issue. So here we go. We're going to run it again. Now I have a list of integers. Cool, cool, cool. All right. So I have cast every string into an integer. And then it says iterate over them starting from the last line.
Mhm.
That's kind of confusing to me. So what I'm going to do is rev list of ints, and I'm just going to do list of ints. And there's this little fancy built-in method in Python. You do brackets. It takes start, stop, step, very similar to your loops. But in Python, if you don't put anything for the start and stop, it assumes you're going from the beginning and going to the end. So you can just do colon, colon, -1. And that will reverse those numbers. So here, I can literally just do rev list of ints, run my function again, and then check, hey, is it reversed? Am I starting with 6 here? Yes, I am. Okay, this is going to make it easier. So iterate over them starting for the last one. I didn't want to do that. I just reversed it. Then I'll just go forward. And I just have to remember that if I need to, reverse it at the end, right? In my head, it's easier, so we're going to roll with that. So there you go. Iterate over them. All right. Now it says, okay, inside the loop, double each alternate value. Okay. So now, what's the next thing I need to do? For num in,
Rev list.
I'm going to use a range here. Why?
Because you need to control more control over how you want to iterate through it.
Yeah.
You want to change your step.
Yeah, so I need to iterate over the string from the last one. So I just reverse the inside. I need to double each alternate value. So only every other value needs to be doubled.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm just going to do the length for I can do for I in range, length of rev list events. Cool. Awesome. So I have done all of these steps here. So I'm really on line 21. And here, I'm going to double each alternate value. So in here, I am going to double each alternate value. But once I double it, I need a place where I can do what?
Store it.
Yeah, I need to store it. So I can create some kind of double int list, empty. Right, so here I'm going to double each alternate value, and I am going to pushes JavaScript, append it to double int list, right? That takes care of double each alternate value. All right, inside the loop, I'm going to double each alternate value, and then I'm going to append it to this list, this double int list, and then it says do another loop and sum any integers over 10, right? So this would literally just be a copy paste. This would be a copy paste, except I'm not iterating over rev list of ints. I'm going to be iterating over what? This list is this iteration is almost the same as the previous, except instead of rev list of ints, I'm going to iterate over what?
The double list?
Yeah, double int list, right? Because I'm transforming. So I am going to iterate over double int list. And I am going to do this. Sum any digits over 10. Sum any digits over 10. But then I need to do what with those values? I need to,
Save them.
yep. So I can call this summed sum digits over 10 list. Empty. I need to append to new list. Why is there a squiggle over this? No. No, it doesn't matter. All right. So here, and then this right here is literally just one more loop. Do another loop, sum the results. Right? Or you could just use the built-in sum method in Python. And if you pass it a list, it just sums everything. Questions on how to get started with this one? I pretty much just pseudocoded it for you and did a little bit of it. So this is kind of how I want you to tackle it. And if you complete that successfully, feel free to give it a shot, do it in all in one loop, because you can. Questions before I cut you loose?
Turn me loose. I'm all over it, man.
All right, guys. I'm going to open the rooms again. If you haven't taken a break, please do so. I know these classes can get long.
I feel like I was on the cusp of having it, but I just don't know enough yet.
Okay.
I got a working solution.
For credit check,
Yes.
you mind sharing with us, Cisco?
All right. Although I'm not happy with the one part of it, list comprehension is still kind of.
No worries. Yeah, just walk us through your solution the best you can, Cisco.
Am I sharing the right screen? Oh,
Yeah, we can see credit check. We can see your VS Code.
okay. All right. Clear it. Okay.
You can actually exit the terminal. You can just press type exit.
Okay.
There you go. You can do that too. There you go.
All right. So can you guys see the
Yep.
text? Okay.
We can see it.
All right. So thanks to your help, I was able to come. I just basically went and completed the for loops. Have it where it's going through it's going through the reverse integer list, and it's checking for every other number. And as it's going through it, it is basically doubling it here, doubling the value and putting it back into reverse integer list. And then I just appended it to the double integer list and came down, used the sum digits over.
Pause right there.
Uh-huh.
Go up a little bit. There's an issue here on line 15 to 17. Can anyone catch it? Or Cisco, if you can catch your own mistake here.
Oh, this right here. Let's see. Range
delimiter. The delimiter in Python is what? It's spacing, right? Tabs. There's an issue here. From line 15 to 17, there's something weird here.
15 to 17.
Anyone that sees it?
In the loop?
It's not.
It's in the loop, but it's
outside the if statement.
Yeah, it's outside the if statement. You see double int list append right there?
Uh-huh.
That's outside of the if. So what's happening is on every iteration, yes, every other number is doubling right there on line 15, but rev int list brackets I is not being captured by anything. You think you're pushing it on line 17, but you're not, because that's outside of the if statement. So what that's really doing is just pushing the exact same number, non-doubled, into double int list. Does everyone see that?
That's weird, because
so on line 17, move it into that if statement.
Okay.
No.
Okay, because let's see here. Let's see what happens here. Hmm.
What are you trying to double?
Yeah, see, this is where so I'm doubling the numbers that's already in the reverse integer list, right? So I'm doubling the reverse integer list, and then I'm putting it into the double integer list here. So essentially what happens is when I do that, it's printing it out here, right? Let me go back here. Let's take this here. Let's see. So you see so it's doing what I expected it to do. It's doubling the numbers. So, and I looked at the GitHub and it matches with what's supposed to
All
show
right,
up on that
go
line.
up, go up.
Hmm.
Just read this code. That's it. Like maybe it's being manipulated somewhere else, but just read line 13 to 17. What is this doing?
So yeah, and it's going through the reverse integer list, which this is
No,
where
no,
it's
no. Stop.
uh-huh.
Don't move anything about your code. I just want you to
Okay.
read line 14 to 18. Read it for me. That's it. Don't change
Okay.
any of your code. We're going to let you
So
continue,
so
right? But I
for
want you
L
to read line 13 to 17. That's it.
okay, for the element in range of uh reverse integer list, the length of reverse integer list is saying if the index is modulo modulo 2 equals 1, which
So if
is
it's odd,
if it's odd, yes.
what are you doing on line 15?
On line 15, if it's odd, I am taking that number, and so it started out as 4. So I'm taking that number and I'm doubling it. I'm multiplying it by 2.
And then you're
And
doing what right there on line 15?
then I'm replacing that 4 with an 8 instead.
Okay, this is really important. You're replacing that number where it's look at line 13, rev
Hmm.
int list. You're
Hmm.
actually doubling the numbers in that list,
Right.
right? But
Hmm.
look at double int list append.
Hmm.
Double list append,
Hmm.
you're pushing what?
I'm pushing this number here.
Okay, I see what you did.
Yeah.
This is fine. This is a
Okay.
weird way to do it though. So
Okay.
what's happening is, does everyone see that? This is hard to follow. That's why I missed it the first time. He's reassigning that index right there on line 15.
Right. Yeah.
But then on the same loop on line 17, since that index is already reassigned to double its value, he's pushing it, right? What's a slightly better way to do this? Inside that if statement, he could have just done what? You could just put line 17 instead of 15, right? And then just double it and push it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. All right. Keep going.
Right.
Keep going.
Um, and then I have the sum digits over 10 array, and I'm going through this double integer list, iterating through the double integer list, and I'm saying if the element in double integer list is greater than 9, I'm basically pretty much kind of doing the same things I was doing up here in a sense, but I tried to use a comprehension, but I still hadn't quite got the knack of that yet or how to go about doing it. But and I know that I kind of cheated here, since I know it's only two numbers, and that was a question I was going to ask you. What if it's more than two digits, right? So I don't know if that applies in this challenge, but I want it to be able to be dynamic where no matter how many digits you have, it'll automatically kind of like iterate over the different digits.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
little hacky, but it's fine. Keep going.
right. So basically I'm splitting it up into a string, and then I'm turning it back into casting it back into an integer so I can add the two together. And say like for instance, this is 10. This will be 1, and then this will be 0, and it's adding 1 plus 0. And it's
Reassigning it to
reassigning
every
it back
iteration.
into that.
Yep.
And and then down here, I just used an if statement that basically says if the sum, and this function here basically will sum everything within an array. It would sum all the numbers in an array for you. So I just took all the numbers in the double integer list, summed it, and did the Modelo 10 equals 0. If so, it's a valid number. If not, it returns number is invalid.
Gotcha. Yeah, this works on line 24. You don't have to turn them into strings, right? You could just subtract, if there were more than 9, you could just subtract 9 and push that integer. That would have been the same thing that you did. You did it the long way,
Okay.
and with the zeros and ones, which you're right, wouldn't be dynamic, but a simple -9 would have been, and then push would have been fine
Okay.
if it was more than 2 integers. Okay, this works.
Yeah. Thanks.
So something that you don't normally see new primaries do is re-index something in the loop. I don't think we've taught you that. So if you don't know what that is, that's fine. If you're still pushing to a string or a list and then manipulating from there, that's totally fine. But yeah, that's more or less the right answer. Anyone have something similar?
No,
Alrighty,
after that, I know my solution's wrong, so
okay. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm just going to go over 2 quick solutions. This is more or less what Cisco had. This is a slightly cleaner version of what Cisco had that follows our code. This code we did earlier, right? And I did it with the double loops, double int list, right? I just check odd numbers, duplicate, right? Then I create another list, sum digits over 10, right? Subtract 9 or leave it alone. And the only difference is here, I use a sum built-in function as well, but I just, assigned it to a total and then did the same modulus. Make sense?
Yep.
This could have been, I mean, you could find cleaner ways to do this, but this could easily just be this. You could do a ternary there, right? You could assign more variables and just do a 1-line return if you wanted to. But this is the exact same thing. Anybody remember what this is called? It's an implicit. It's an implicit return, right? If this
okay.
isn't true, automatically it's going to hit the last line, right?
Mm.
What happens when a function hits a return statement? It does what?
X is out.
Yeah, it exits the function. Super important. Does a return statement have to return anything?
It doesn't have to.
Yeah, you can actually just put return at the end of a function. It's going to end just fine. I mean, just not returning anything. And the use case for that there'd be very few use cases for that, but it does happen from time to time. So remember, return ends your function. So that's credit check. And then here's the answer to some pairs with a dictionary. It's kind of one of those things like when you see someone else do it, you're like, oh, I could have figured that out. It's kind of one of those. So I just create a dictionary. I call it scene, and then a result array. And then you just iterate over the array, right? And here, the crux of the whole thing is what you've seen before. You take the complement. Here's your target number. Just subtract the current iteration. This is really important here. Just subtract the current iteration. You can assign it to complement, right? And then if complement is in scene, meaning, hey, is this number inside that dictionary, right? If it is, you can append it, right? Because the complement, right, and the number is going to be one of those pairs, right? Because you're pretty much undoing this. And if it doesn't hit that F statement, that's okay for all the numbers that we've seen. Throw them in there and just put a Boolean true in there. The true here doesn't really matter. It could have been a string 1. It could have been an asterisk. It could have been anything. As long as you mark it that, hey, that number is in there, that key's in there, that works, right? And then this is just a fancy ternary. I just check if the length of result is greater than 0. If it
Cool.
is return result. If it isn't, then I mean, if it isn't greater than 0, then just return, hey, there's no pairs. Don't return an empty list because there's no matching pairs that equal the target. So this is just one loop.
That's cool.
Last thing, this is somewhat of a nuanced thing, and this is how deeply you have to understand some languages to be really good at it. So this is what kind of search on line 5. What kind of search? We've only touched on one kind of search so far.
Hmm.
We've only touched on one kind of search, so I expect you to know
Oh.
this.
Is it brute force search? Is that what you're looking
No,
for?
no, I'm looking for a name
Linear
here.
search?
Linear search.
Okay.
So the array being passed in, right, for num in array is just a linear search. It's tagging every element. It's iterating over every element, right?
Hmm.
Right. So look at what this is. What is line 7? The question is it a linear search or is it not? And why?
Compliment. It looks like it is a linear search to me because it's gonna go through. It's gonna look at everything. And is that scene or seam? Is that scene?
Scene is just a dictionary, right? This
Yeah.
dictionary or hash map or however you want to call it on line
Right.
2.
Right. So it's gonna look at every element in scene still, right?
Yes and no. And the only reason I bring this up is because look at this. Look at the syntax. It's the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
More or less, complement in scene, num in R. It's
Right.
exactly the same. But under the hood, if this is a list, this is a linear search. Here is direct access to a dictionary, right? Under the hood, the key is a hash. So it points to a value in memory. So this is not a search at all. It's just a pointer to a place in memory where the value is stored. Small nuances in Python. Look at the syntax, it looks exactly the same. But when I look at this code, I know for sure this is a hash check and this is a loop.
So as far as a hash check is concerned, what exactly is it? What exactly is it looking for? Like under the hood, what is it looking for? Is it looking for the memory location or?
So look at a key. The key points to a location in memory, right, where that value is stored, right? And we haven't got into this, but eventually we'll teach you about time and space complexity, and that matters in terms of optimizing your code. The only reason that I bring that up, do you really need to know that right now? No. But I show you these very small nuances that you can kind of start to understand, to realize that when you look at code, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot, even more going on under the hood, right? And you need to really start to really develop a really deep understanding of at least one programming language. That's going to be really, really crucial. One of the biggest mistakes that I see new programmers make is they go too wide and they don't go deep enough, right? They try to learn like a million different frameworks, a million different technologies, a bunch of different languages, right? But they don't know one language really, really well. And I think ultimately that hurts you. You want to get really good at one language first because it's going to teach you a lot about what languages can do, right? I always recommend Python because it's the easiest to learn. Also, when you interview, algos are still pretty prevalent, and Python is, I think, the best language to take algos in because there's like I said before, a lot of built-in functionality, and you can be really fast with it. So Python's the GOAT for technical interviews, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think that that's a hot take. I think that's probably general consensus in the tech community. So get really good with it. But outside of that, right, having an intimate understanding of a programming language will help you not only in interviews, but doing your job, knowing what a language can do, what are its limitations, right? So that's why I point those little things out. I show you that there's layers to this, right? One time I was interviewing a guy and I asked him about very large integers being pushed to a list with millions of elements. And he said, well, I think Python optimizes for that. And he proceeded to explain to me how Python optimizes space and memory. We gave him a job. Right? Like that's, I didn't expect him to go into detail there, right? But he understood this language deeply. And that's ultimately the goal for everyone here. It's hard to be a good programmer when you don't understand things like at a pretty deep level, because everything's just so complex. Questions? Any last minute questions before we wrap up? I know I just kind of went on a little bit of a rant there.
One thing on the code for the I in range, those loops, couldn't the step be done inside like the syntax for the loop?
What do you mean? The syntax
Like,
can be done.
So you could do like for I in range of the length of your parameter, and then if you put a comma, wouldn't you be able to put a 2? And then that would make it look at the every alternating
Could
thing
you
in the
go
list?
steps by 2? Yes, you could have done it that way too. Good catch, Adam.
Thought so. Okay. I tried to do that, but I don't think I know how to set up the syntax correctly.
Start, stop, step. In Python, well, in JavaScript too, start, stop, step. But in Python, does something interesting. If you don't put in any values for start, stop, it's just going to assume you want to go from the beginning and you want to go to the end. Right? That's why you can get away with, I show you that little shortcut about reversing a list or reversing a string, colon, colon, -1. It just assumes that you want to go from the beginning and you want to go to the end and you want to go backwards by 1.
Yeah.
Staying loops are the exact same way. Look at it, right? If you wanted to start at 3, the only difference in that range would be 3 comma, where you want to end. And you could put in a step in there if you really wanted to, just like you were trying to do, Adam. That would have worked too.
All right. Okay. Maybe I wasn't so far off.
All right, guys. I think you have Tiffany on Saturday. Have you guys had Tiffany before?
Nope.
All right, awesome. Yeah, they're finishing with golf, but Tiffany's your instructor. She is awesome. She is always the highest rated instructor we have. Okay, if you don't think I'm very good or Jordan's very good, that's okay. We're used to being second and third or fourth. All right. Have a wonderful day, guys.
And I just want to say hi, Saya.
Oh, Saya.
I hope I pronounced that right. I thought we had a new
Yeah.
I thought we had a new student at first, but
Yeah, no, I'll be your teaching assistant for this cohort. So it's great to meet you all. And I'm super excited to help you all learn this cohort.
All right, pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
She's going to be doing her rounds. I just met her too. She's going to be doing her rounds in our cohort.
All righty.
Cameron,
Have a good night.
How do we utilize the TA? What's the
She
best
might
use
know
of the
more
TA?
than I do. Yeah, so what's going to happen is next time we meet, and she'll probably do that with other instructors, she'll bounce around in the breakout rooms and try to help you get started. I think that's kind of the big thing early on is, when you guys say, I don't know how to get started, that's super common. To help you get started with some pseudocode. They'll be leading probably breakout sessions on things that you find interesting towards the end of the cohort where we have more time, especially during personal projects and group projects. That's what they've done in the past, but I told Saya she could carte blanche, like if something piques your interest and you want to teach a mini lesson on that, feel free. The thing about tech is, Saya, you're a computer engineer major, right?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So here, and she can correct me if I'm wrong. I was a computer engineer student at UT. I dropped out to pursue software because I found it more interesting. In computer engineering, it's mostly math and physics. But math and physics is really interesting. But once you memorize the formulas, you can kind of do anything. Software engineering is not like that. You can't memorize like a dozen formulas or 20 formulas and then have the answer for everything, right? Well, software engineering is unlike any career you're ever going to take because everything is so big and there's no like in electrical engineering, we have wires and like connectors and we can, connect it to batteries and and you have a starting point and you have an ending point.
Mhm.
You don't have that in software. You don't get wires, you don't get starting points, you don't get ending points. You build all of it, right?
Mhm.
From one end to the other. That's what's scary. Like you can do it a million different ways, right? But wiring a house, man, there's really only one way,
Yeah.
right? There's only one right way to do it. Wiring a building, really typically one, maybe two ways to do it. But software engineering, there's a million ways to do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, not to diminish the hard engineers, right? You know, but it's pretty straightforward. It's a lot of plug and chug. Software engineering, not like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, she will be around. Have a wonderful day, guys. Been a
All
long
right.
day.
Guys, do the
Have a
same.
great night.
Bye.